Wisconsin Senator Ron Johnson. Senator, it's good to see you again. As always, I'd like to get your reaction to the revelations that you and your colleagues were targeted by the Biden Justice Department.
Well, Tom, it was a outrageous violation of the separation of powers. We don't know a whole lot yet. We know that they, basically obtained records, phone records, the basic metadata from January 4th through January 7th of 2021 surrounding, the events of January 6th. What's interesting is the timing of it all. President Trump's Mar-a-Lago was raided in August of 2022. Jack Smith was appointed in September of that year. Then about a year later, Jack Smith announces the indictments against Donald Trump. Then a couple months after that, they're scooping up our records. Beyond that, about a month or two later, the Deputy Attorney General, Lisa Monaco, changed the procedures that would be required for them to snatch up those kind of records. So it would, again, I can only infer here, but it seems like maybe somebody up in the Justice Department found out what they did and said, Houston, we got a problem here. We better cover our backside here. But again, I've asked Casper Tal, Pam Bondi to turn over all the records. At this point, I don't want a special counsel. I don't want a criminal investigation. At some point in time, that may be appropriate. But my experience in investigating for 10 years, the minute you have a special counsel or a criminal investigation, Congress, which means the American people, get no information. And they may never get the information. Right. If they do a criminal investigation, only indict on narrow charges, they only use that information. The rest gets sealed and held from the public. And I don't think that's going to be adequate this time. The American public needs to know all the gory details regarding this breach of separation of powers.
So if I'm hearing you correctly, the prosecutor, Jack Smith, should not be prosecuted, at least at this point. You'd like to see hearings held and a lot more public disclosure on this abuse of power.
Mainly public disclosure. But again, in order for that information to be disclosed, Congress first has to get the documents. I know people are going to be, subpoenaing Jack Smith, but interviewing somebody without the underlying documents is kind of a fruitless exercise. They can just claim, I don't know what you're talking about. It's hard for them to claim that when you've got the document. What did you mean when you wrote this? So again, documents first, rigorous internal investigation by the FBI to find the documents first, turn those over to Congress, let us do our oversight, let us do our deposed interviews, let us do our hearings. And again, if we find criminal activity, we can refer that to the Justice Department for the criminal investigations. That's the proper order.
Yeah, it really emphasizes just how bad our constitutional crisis is, where we don't really have three co-equal branches of government anymore. We have this executive branch that believes it has so much power and authority that it could even do something like this. Senator, I want to switch gears. We're over 2 weeks into the government shutdown, partial government shutdown. Democrats continue to sing the same tune. Here is Minority Leader Chuck Schumer earlier this week.
Republicans remain dug in and insist there's nothing to negotiate when it comes to health care, that they won't even sit down and talk with Democrats about it. That makes no sense. That's not the way we always get our CRs done.
Now, this is the guy who said that a government shutdown was the policy of idiocy, and yet they have now voted, 10 times plus against doing something to try to open the government. Your response to the leader?
Well, that was months ago that he said that shutdowns were idiocy. Now, we gave them the 10th opportunity to just vote for the clean continuing resolution, which is what they've always supported in the past.
President Trump has now designated Antifa as a domestic terrorist organization, and people have been waiting for this for a very, very long time. But suddenly, despite years of destruction that Antifa has caused in cities like Portland and all across the country, some folks on the Democratic Party and on the left are having a little bit of amnesia. Watch.
You understand. There's no Antifa. This is an entirely imaginary organization. There is not an Antifa.
The first person I ever heard use the word Antifa was Donald J. Trump when he was going on about how there were good people on both sides in Charlottesville.
There is no organized hierarchy to the group. And according to the Center for Strategic and International Studies, compared to right-wing extremists, Antifa-linked violence is rare and limited.
Senator, I'd like to get your response to suddenly their change of heart, but also without divulging anything inappropriate. What can you tell us about the progress of the investigation and efforts to break down this group, which also appears to have foreign connections as well?
Democrats are living in an alternate reality. You take a look at the protests that, the peaceful protests that result in hundreds of violent riots during the summer 2020 in reaction to George Floyd. Most of the political violence is occurring on and incited by the left. I mean, it's just indisputable. They've got to take their blinders off. The funding of these organizations, that's what's going to be the very difficult investigation. That's what we need the Justice Department with all their investigatory tools to dig into. And again, that's not weaponizing those agencies. Those are using those agencies the way they should be used to uncover, investigate crime, and prosecute criminals.
Wisconsin Senator Ron Johnson, thank you, sir. Appreciate you being with us.
Have a good day.
Information. Truth is freedom. Is Newsmax. It's real news for real people.